Peptides only amplify. They do not replace infrastructure. So before you even start talking about optimization, fat loss, recovery, we need to understand the engine, the mitochondrial. A real world example. So you have a 38-year-old professional. He trains 5 to 6 times per week. He sleeps 5 to 6 hours per day, a high stress job, daily high stimulant use, and he's on a low carb intake diet most of the time. So here are the things that he mostly complains about. He has a midday crash almost every day, flat workouts, the intensity is not there, wired at night, and exhausted in the morning. He adds Tesamorelin, he adds MOTS, he adds CJC 1295 and Underperform. This is the stack that he decides to take. Months later, on this stack, pretty much nothing has changed. Some progress, but not the progress that he was expecting. And why is that? Because this was never really primarily a hormone problem. It was an energy production problem. And until you understand that layer, peptide signaling will always feel inconsistent. Today, I am going to do a deep dive into mitochondrial because I know this is something that many people really don't understand. Because if you understand mitochondrial, you'll understand why energy fades, recovery slows, and why some peptide protocols disappoint, even when the compounds are legitimate. Most people don't feel stuck because they are doing everything wrong. They feel stuck because their body can no longer support the level of output that they are demanding. Energy dips, recovery goes from 1 day to 3 days, sleep is inconsistent, motivation feels forced instead of natural. And in most cases, this has absolutely nothing to do with age. This isn't about discipline. This isn't about willpower. This is about capacity, more specifically, mitochondrial capacity. Now, here's where it becomes important for people that are researching peptides. Compounds like MOTS, SS31, Tesamorelin, CJC 1295, Hypermorelin, all of these compounds influence signaling, but signaling only works if the system underneath it can supply the energy needed to execute the signal itself. Peptides only amplify. They do not replace infrastructure. So before you even start talking about optimization, fat loss, recovery, we need to understand the engine, the mitochondrial. So what do mitochondrial actually do? They are usually described as the powerhouse of a cell. That's accurate, but it's incomplete. Mitochondrial don't just produce energy. They determine how much energy your body can sustain over time. They regulate how much ATP you can generate, how efficiently you can convert fuel into energy, how well you tolerate stress, and how much output your system can maintain. ATP drives everything from muscle contractions, hormone signaling, neurotransmitter production, immune response, and tissue repair. Calories are fuel. Mitochondrial are the engine. Fuel without an engine doesn't move anything. Now, this is where things get practical because when mitochondrial capacity is strong, life feels different. When mitochondrial output is high, training feels productive, recovery is proportional, sleep restores you, you wake up in the morning feeling fresh, and cognitively you feel stable. But when capacity declines, the body doesn't panic, it adapts. Not by pushing the body harder, but by dimming the output. Spontaneous movement decreases, perceived effort decreases, brain fog creeps in, and motivation drops. This isn't weakness, it's conservation. Your nervous system is protecting you. And this is where many peptide users misunderstand exactly what is happening. Increasing growth hormone signaling with peptides like Tesamorelin or CJC doesn't increase ATP production. Improving metabolic signaling with research compounds like GLP-1s doesn't automatically expand capacity. Without energy supply, all of these signals will stall, and when the signals stall, most people always assume the compound failed. But often the engine, the mitochondrial, was already strained. This brings us to recovery. Recovery is metabolically expensive. Tissue repair, glycogen replenishment, hormone recalibration, and inflammation control. All of these pieces of what happens when we need to recover requires ATP. When mitochondrial capacity tightens, the body will prioritize survival over adaptation. And recovery is the first thing to get downgraded. This is why so many people say, I don't bounce back like I used to. Yes, aging plays a role, and it would be disingenuous to suggest that it doesn't. But more often than what people expect, the drivers are prolonged calorie restrictions, poor sleep, excess stimulant use, training without deload cycles, and constant psychological stress. Psychological stress may be the biggest piece of this puzzle because for most men and some women, the stresses of life cause more damage to recovery than anything else. Now, here's the mistake that many people make. As mentioned in the beginning of this video, the 38-year-old professional. When recovery declines, many people add more signaling. They add Tesamorelin, they add CJC 1295 and Underperform. Those compounds increase repair demand, but repair requires energy. If ATP availability is limited, you've just increased demand without expanding supply. This gap almost always creates disappointment, not because the peptides are useless, but because the system itself is strained. Now, let's zoom deeper into what contains the mitochondrial. Every time the mitochondrial produce ATP, it also produces waste. This waste is called reactive oxidative species, ROS for short. In small amounts, this is normal. In excess, poor sleep, poor dieting, constant training, stimulant overload, all of these things damage the inner mitochondrial membrane. The inner membrane is critical. It's where energy production becomes efficient. When it destabilizes, energy leaks, efficiency drops, and fatigue increases. This is where SS31 becomes relevant. SS31 helps stabilize the inner membrane. It improves efficiency and it reduces oxidative strain, but it doesn't generate energy from nothing. If you continue creating damage faster than repair can occur, no peptide will fix that imbalance. Peptides improve environments, they do not override them. And that brings us to another layer that people confuse with low energy. Sometimes what people call low energy is actually poor metabolic flexibility. If mitochondrial struggles to switch between glucose and fat, energy will peak after meals, crashes will follow, and stimulants will be used just so you can feel baseline. MOTS influences metabolic signaling. It enhances cellular responsiveness to metabolic stress. It improves fuel handling, but it doesn't create ATP out of thin air. It improves how energy is used. If sleep, nutrition, and stress are aligned, MOTS can significantly stabilize energy. But if those systems are chaotic, the signal will get diluted. Again, capacity must precede amplification. And when capacity drops, many people fall into one more trap. We are all familiar in most cases with the stimulant trap. Low energy in most cases leads to stimulant escalation. More caffeine, stronger pre-workouts, more sympathetic drive. Stimulants increase output demand, but they do not increase mitochondrial capacity. Over time, from high stimulant use, your cortisol will rise, your sleep will become poor, an increase of oxidative stress, and this will further strain mitochondria. Then compounds get stacked, more signaling, more intensity. This is signal stacking without foundation, amplifying demand without restoring supply, accelerates collapse. This brings us back to how to properly design a protocol. These are the three biggest protocol mistakes that I see from researchers. Mistake 1, increasing growth hormone signaling without restoring energy capacity, meaning running Tesamorelin but only sleeping 5 hours a night, or running CJC 1295 and under-eating at the same time. Mistake 2, running MOTS in a metabolically unstable system. If someone is stimulant dependent and chronically underslept, signaling cannot override instability. Mistake 3, using SS31 while continuing oxidative overload. If stress and sleep are unmanaged, repair cannot outpace destruction. Most peptide failures are not dosage failures. They are capacity failures. And now let's circle back to the example I started this video with. The 38-year-old didn't need more signaling first. He needed more capacity restoration. When sleep improved, when stimulant use decreased, when training was consistent, then peptides were introduced. Now growth hormone signaling enhanced real repair. Now MOTS improved energy handling. Now SS31 improved efficiency. Same compounds, just a different foundation, which led to a totally different outcome. Mitochondrial determines how much life your body can support. Most people attempt to increase intensity. Very few expand capacity. If you understand mitochondrial, you'll understand why recovery collapses, why fatigue continues, why some peptide protocols disappoint, and why the signal must follow the capacity. Expand energy production first, then increase demand. This is sustainable optimization. That's all I got. I hope this video gave you guys some clarity on what mitochondrial is and how to approach using peptide protocols. If it did, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and I'll check you guys later. Thank you.